The horseshoe crab, that armored helmet creeping up the Delaware shore every May, has been doing exactly that since before trees figured out how to be trees, and its blood is inside every injectable drug you've ever taken. It's cobalt blue. Its body predates dinosaurs by 200 million years, and there's a very specific reason drug companies harvested 500,000 of them per year. Copper-based hemocyanin turns the blood blue the instant it meets oxygen, a trick that worked better in ancient low-oxygen seas. That same blood clots instantly around bacterial invaders, a response so fast that modern medicine spent 60 years trying to replicate it in a lab. 300 million years before the first mammal, 150 million before the first flower, 5 separate global extinctions, and it keeps walking onto the same beach. Despite the name, it isn't a crab. Its closest living relatives are arachnids, and the label is a centuries-old naming error that never got corrected. It evolved 10 eyes and uses almost none of them. Every vaccine you've ever had was quality checked by a Paleozoic spider. The pharmaceutical industry owes its safety record to a 500 million year old arthropod that still hasn't noticed the continents drifted apart. The sturgeon. The fish that gave us caviar is older than Tyrannosaurus, and after surviving every catastrophe Earth could deliver, it met the one predator it couldn't evolve around: us. No scales, no teeth, an armored body plan that hasn't needed an update in 200 million years. The skeleton stays mostly cartilage, a retained juvenile trait that saves metabolic energy, while bony plates called scutes stand in for scales. A beluga hits 23 feet and 3,500 pounds. A single female carries over 100 pounds of eggs, which is both the reason the species exists and the reason it's vanishing. It survived the asteroid. It survived the Great Dying that erased 96% of marine life. It couldn't survive a sandwich spread. The cartilage skeleton puts it closer to sharks than to bass or salmon, not a typical bony fish at all. Paleontologists keep asking whether the fossil is the same species as the one in the tank. The answer is approximately yes. It looks like a fish drawn from memory by someone who'd never seen a fish. An animal that outlasted every catastrophe Earth could produce is now primarily endangered by an hors d'oeuvre. The velvet worm. Something from the Cambrian is alive right now in a wet rainforest, and if you get close enough, it'll fire 2 streams of adhesive liquid at your face. It looks like a caterpillar crossed with a centipede, but it hunts with a weapon that engineers still can't replicate: a soft body with 14 to 43 pairs of stubby legs, and slime that fires from oral papilla through an opening smaller than a human hair, at speeds that would be a traffic violation, polymerizing on contact with air and immobilizing prey in under a second. Velvet worms bridge the gap between worms and arthropods, a missing link that refused to go extinct. 500 million years. Older than insects, older than spiders, older than the concept of a backbone. The weapon hasn't been updated once. Not a worm, though. Onychophorans are their own phylum, closer to tarantulas than to earthworms, and the name is a 19th century naturalist accident that stuck. It evolved a weapon that would look ridiculous on any modern animal, then declined to update. 5 mass extinctions, and the slime cannon is still shipping. Evolution tried the design once, left it alone, and 5 extinctions later, the squirt gun still works. The Lingula. A shell lying in the mud off Japan right now has a body plan that predates fish, and Darwin coined the term living fossil specifically for this animal. It's fossil from 450 million years ago, and its descendant on a seafood plate in Taiwan today are visually identical. The shell is calcium phosphate instead of carbonate, which happens to resist dissolving in acidified water, an accidental superpower during ocean chemistry catastrophes. A fleshy stalk called a pedicle lets it retract below the sediment and wait out anoxic events, exactly what killed most marine life during the Permian extinction. Its shell shape has been winning for 450 million years. The entire human species has existed for a tiny sliver of that run, and the Lingula is still here, still sold by the bucket as cheap street food. Scientists spent a century trying to walk Darwin's complement back, because the shape is unchanged but the internal anatomy has kept evolving, and modern Lingula aren't the same species as the Cambrian ones. It sat out 5 apocalypses by digging a hole and waiting. Whole civilizations have tried that strategy with less success. Some animals won the evolutionary arms race. This one won by declining to compete. The Nautilus. A torpedo with 90 tentacles is drifting through a South Pacific reef right now, and it remembers where it fed yesterday using a brain the size of a pea. 10,000 Nautilus species once existed. 6 remain. And the reason they're disappearing now has nothing to do with asteroids. 50 to 90 tentacles without suckers, jet propulsion, life spent 500 to 2,000 feet deep. Buoyancy comes from gas-filled chambers in the coiled shell, the whole arrangement functioning like a submarine's ballast, gas and fluid shifting between compartments to adjust depth without muscular effort. That deep-water lifestyle is exactly why it survived every extinction. Surface ecosystems collapse first. The Nautilus just lived below where the killing happened. Reset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there it still is, drifting through the same oceans. Its shell isn't a decorative spiral the animal built for flair. Each chamber is a former living space it outgrew and sealed off, so it's walking around carrying every apartment it has ever rented. It has the memory of a dog and the anatomy of a World War II submarine. Evolution gave it everything except the eyesight to see where it's going. It outran 5 extinctions. It can't outrun a tourist with a decorating budget. If you're enjoying learning about creatures that refuse to play by the rules, I post new animal content regularly, and subscribing really helps the channel. Thanks. The Lamprey. There's a jawless fish in the Great Lakes right now doing the same thing it was doing 360 million years ago, and what it's doing is disturbing. No jaw, no scales, a mouth that's a circular room full of teeth, and it has been refining that blueprint since before bones became popular. It's an agnathan, a separate branch from every other modern fish, with a sucker disc mouth lined with concentric rings of keratin teeth, and saliva that keeps the host's wound bleeding indefinitely. Having no jaw isn't primitive in a dumb sense. It's one of 2 valid solutions to the grip and feed problem, and it works so well that evolution never found jaws obviously superior. Before the first amphibian crawled onto land, lamprey ancestors were doing this exact job. When T-Rex was hunting, lampreys were hunting. When humans invented boats, lampreys started using them to reach new prey. Also, they aren't eels. Eels are bony fish with jaws, and lampreys branch off much earlier. The mouth is essentially a shower drain lined with teeth. When it found a design that worked, it committed, aggressively. The jawless fish that outsurvived the jawed fish is now killing Great Lakes trout for sport. The Triops. A puddle in the Arizona desert that filled last week is full of living animals whose blueprint hasn't been updated since the Triassic. The adults live a few weeks. The eggs can wait 27 years, and some of them are waiting right now, in dust under your feet. 3 eyes, hence the name. A 220 million year old lineage morphologically almost identical to the fossils. The cysts survive desiccation, extreme heat, and radiation, hatching within hours of rehydration. Cryptobiosis flatlines the embryo's metabolism, drops its water content below 2%, and when the rain finally returns, it rehydrates and hatches before any competitor can move in. Older than the earliest dinosaur, the eggs survive being baked at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 16 hours, and some triops still hatch from soil samples collected in 1998. Those dinosaur shrimp kits sold at hobby stores aren't a gimmick cooked up for marketing. They're a real member of a genuinely ancient lineage. The box is accurate. Amazon Prime delivers dinosaurs now. They just need water. A pet store shrimp is a more durable piece of engineering than most skyscrapers. There's a version of life that just refuses to be rushed, or ended. The Crocodilian. The animal pulling a wildebeest under the Mara River looks almost exactly like its ancestors did the day the asteroid hit the Yucatan. They watched the dinosaurs die. They watched mammals take over. And they haven't needed a redesign. A 200 million year old archosaur lineage, same group as dinosaurs and birds, making every sparrow alive a distant cousin of the animal-eating sparrows. They survived the extinction 66 million years ago and the Eocene-Oligocene event 33 million years later. Bite force in a saltwater croc hits about 3,700 pounds per square inch, and their metabolism's slow enough to go a full year between meals if conditions demand it. The ambush body plan and dietary flexibility mean a crocodilian survives ecosystem collapse by simply waiting longer between meals. The asteroid winter wasn't an extinction event for them. It was a long fasting session, 200 million years on the clock. Primates have been around for 55, and the crocodile still hasn't needed to upgrade. Unchanged since the dinosaurs is an oversimplification. Ancestral crocodilians were wildly diverse, including fast land dwellers and even marine species. The secret to surviving a global catastrophe is apparently don't be in a hurry. The dinosaurs got famous. The crocodiles got comfortable. The coelacanth. In December of 1938, a fish thought extinct for 66 million years turned up in a trawler's net off the South African coast. Vertebrate biology is still processing it. The fossil record showed it thriving, and then nothing, for 66 million years, until a dockworker's phone call rewrote the textbooks. It's a lobe-finned fish, more closely related to land vertebrates than to tuna, which means it's closer to a human than to most of the fish you've actually eaten. It lives 650 feet down in volcanic caves, gives birth to live young, and the fins move in a walking gait pattern that's basically a rough draft of arms and legs. The deep cave habitat is exactly why the fossil record went quiet. It vanished from the fossil record for 66 million years. Earth thought it had won. It hadn't. 3 populations are now confirmed off: South Africa, Indonesia, and the Comoros. The modern coelacanth isn't identical to the fossil species either. It's evolved. The discovery wasn't a time capsule. It was an evolved descendant quietly continuing in caves the paleontologists weren't looking in. Every biology textbook had to issue a correction. Again. Imagine declaring a species extinct, getting a century of peer review, and then a fisherman catches one. Evolution's answer to the asteroid was apparently, go deeper, say nothing, wait it out. The glass sponge. A sponge pulled from the East China Sea was, at the moment it was collected, approximately 11,000 years older than every pyramid on Earth combined. Its skeleton is made of silica, actual glass. Its lifespan is measured in millennia, and a single individual has lived longer than the entire concept of agriculture. It's a roughly 650 million year old lineage, with a skeleton of silica spicules that accrete like tree rings. One individual was estimated at about 11,000 years old, and researchers suggest maximum lifespans may reach 15,000. Human agriculture? 12,000 years. Human writing? 5,500 years. This one sponge, roughly 11,000. It watched humanity invent civilization and didn't particularly react. Sponges aren't plants, despite being fixed in place and looking like one. They're among the oldest branches of the animal kingdom. Older than nervous systems, older than blood, older than muscle. It's an animal that decided against the whole having cells that do things gambit. The tortoise is a sprinter by comparison. A skeleton you can read like a library, attached to an animal that never particularly needed to move. Time for this branch of the animal kingdom is barely a factor. The tardigrade. Something smaller than a sesame seed survived 5 mass extinctions, a decade's worth of experiments in open space, and gamma radiation 1,000 times lethal for humans. And it did it by going to sleep. When conditions go bad, it drops its body water below 1%, curls into a compact ton, and enters a state called cryptobiosis. In 2007, researchers exposed 3,000 tardigrades to open space for 10 days. 68% came back to life within 30 minutes of rehydration. 5 mass extinctions, 10 days in open space, a radiation dose 1,000 times lethal for a human. It lived through all of it by refusing to do any metabolism at all. The tardigrade becomes a glass pellet of its own biochemistry. Its DNA gets physically wrapped in a protein called D-sup, which shields the genome like body armor. The mechanism wasn't understood until 2024, when research on Hypsibius henanensis identified 2,801 genes that activate during lethal radiation, and showed the tardigrade picked up radiation resistance genes from bacteria deep in its history. Also, they aren't invincible while active. The superpowers only switch on inside the ton. Scientists keep inventing extreme environments to try to kill them. The tardigrades keep surviving. Evolution apparently rewards stubbornness. Earth has tried 5 times to kill everything on it. It could try a 6th time. For the tardigrade, it wouldn't matter. Of every animal that survived multiple extinctions, this one is the only candidate to outlast the planet itself. That's the list. If you stuck around all the way to the tardigrade, subscribing means the next one lands in your feed. Thanks for watching.